Okay, so can you solve this equation? Well, I think a lot of people are going to have a tough time solving this equation and are not going to be able to get the right answer. And even those that actually get the right answer are probably not probably don't have full comprehension of all the steps that they are taking. And they could have gotten a little bit lucky. So we want to make sure that you fully understand how to solve these type of equations. And the equation that we're looking at is what we call a rational exponent equation. And we want to solve this without the aid of a calculator. So the problem is 3x to the 3/4 power minus 6 is equal to 0. Again, no calculator. But if you can figure this out, go ahead and put your answer into the comment section. I'll show you the correct answer in just 1 second. Then, of course, we're going to walk through all the steps that we need to take in order to figure this problem out. Okay, but before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And if you need help learning math, well, check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, or if you just enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. Okay, so this problem, this topic here, is something that you would see at like the Algebra 2 or college algebra level, certainly pre-calculus. So if you're in a first year algebra course, it's very likely that you have not yet studied this. So if you're like, I don't even know what to do, Mr. YouTube Math Man, well, again, unless you're at a more advanced level of math, it's a good chance you have not yet studied, again, rational exponents. You see, in math, when you have something like a fraction, like 3/4, any number that you can express as a fraction made up of integers is called a rational number. And a power, like 2 to the third power, this little number up in the top right, that's the exponent. So when our exponents are rational numbers, well, we're dealing with a rational exponent equation. And this actually can be a little bit confusing for a lot of students. But let's go and take a look at the correct answer. Again, no calculators. The right answer for this equation is x is equal to 2 to the 4/3 power. All right, now if you used a calculator, you probably have some sort of decimal value. But again, we're not using calculators here. So if you got this right, that is fantastic. I definitely have to give you a nice little happy face and A plus, a 100%, and multiple stars. You can tell your friends and family that indeed you know how to solve rational exponent equations. All right, now there is a lot to cover here. No way that this little video is going to be a replacement, for full instruction and a lot of different practice on this topic. So if you don't understand a lot of these concepts, as I kind of quickly review them, you definitely need to follow up. And let me give you a couple quick suggestions on where you can do that. I have additional videos on my YouTube channel on this topic. Also, you might want to check out my Algebra 2 and or pre-calculus courses. You can find links to them in the description of this video. Okay, so here is our equation. And anytime you are trying to solve an equation, okay, with a variable with a particular power, what we want to do is isolate the power and get all the numbers on the other side of the equation. So for example, let's suppose we're trying to solve this equation right here, x to the 7th power minus 6 is equal to 0. Well, we want to get the number on the other side of the equation, so we want to manipulate or write the equation such that we get it to this point right here. Okay, now of course we haven't solved the equation, but we want to isolate the power on one side and a number on the other side. Now, of course, we need to take additional steps to solve for x. That'll be the second part of this problem. But here you can see that we have a little bit of work to do to move this 6 over to the other side, and then we have to divide by 3. What we want to do is isolate this part of the equation on the left-hand side. All right, so I'll be showing you all that in just 1 second, and then we have to consider a lot of other factors as well. But before we get into this, let's take a look at some problems that are related to what we're talking about. Okay, and you'll see how in a second. So let's take a look at these two equations. I have x squared is equal to 4 and x cubed is equal to 8. So this is a quadratic equation, and to solve this, all I have to do is take the square root of both sides. So x squared is going to be x, and the square root of 4 is going to be positive and negative 2. All right, so in other words, some number squared is going to be equal to 4, well, that is either going to be 2 or negative 2, right? If I square those, I get back to 4. So here are my two solutions. Now here, x cubed, it's different, right? And let's just notice, by the way, that this number, this exponent is even. Okay, this is going to be something I want you to remember. Right? This is even, and we have two answers. Now, this is odd right here, but does this work the same way? Because what number cubed is 8? Well, we should know that, the answer is 2, right? Because 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 cubed, is 8. But it's only positive 2, right? Because negative 2 is not positive 8. Negative 2 cubed is what? Well, negative 2 times negative 2. This is positive 4 times negative 2. That's negative 8. So the only answer here is a positive 2. So the whole point here is that we have to pay attention when we are solving equations. We have to take note of whether the exponent is an even or odd number. And this is going to have an impact on what we're going to be doing here in a second, right? So pay attention to this because this is not a small, little trivial detail. All right, now let's go ahead and get into some definitions about uh, working with rational exponents. Again, something like this, x to the 1/2 power. This is a rational exponent. So every rational exponent has an equivalent radical expression that we can write. So let's just kind of review real quick the square root of x. Well, if you didn't know, the square root of x is equal to the same thing as x to the 1/2 power. In other words, let's kind of go over here with write the square root of 4. If you go into your calculator and you say, hey, what's the square root of 4? We have a square root symbol. But the square root of 4 is equal to 4 to the 1/2 power. So if you want to just kind of test that in your calculator, you can. And you could do that using this key right here, the caret key, or the y to the x key, and then plug in 1/2. You'll see that it's effectively taking the square root of 4. Okay, so again, every radical or square root has an equivalent rational exponent. All right, so the square root of x is equal to x to the 1/2. Let's take a look at another example here so we can see the pattern. How about the cube root of x? Well, the cube root of x is equal to x to the 1/3. So over here with our square root, there's actually a little 2 right there. We don't write that. And you can test this little theory in your calculator as well. Just go ahead and take 8, for example, and figure out what 8 to the 1/3 power is. That's the same thing as a cube root of 8, which of course is 2. Okay, so again, rational exponents have an equivalent radical expression that we can write, and you need to know how to go from one to the other. All right, so here is a quick review of what you need to know. You can pause the video and write this down for your notes if you want. So a to the m over n, this is a rational exponent. So m is our numerator and n is our denominator. Okay, so that is equivalent to this expression. So the nth root, right? So the denominator here is the root, okay, or the little 2 is the 2 in our denominator. This little 3, like the cube root, is the number in our denominator. So you got to really be paying attention to this notation right here, right? So our denominator number is our root, okay? So a to the m over n is equal to the nth root of a, all this to the m, or we could write it this way right here, where that m is on the inside. So you got to, really pay attention to the details because all of these are equivalent, and you need to know how to go from this form or this form to this form, etc., etc. Okay, so hopefully this is making some sort of sense. And again, as I indicated, a lot of students kind of whiz through these problems and they think they are doing, they think they have full grasp on everything, but in actuality, there's a lot of parts that could trick them up in particular problems. Right? There's a lot here that you really need to fully understand to master how to work with rational exponents. Okay, so let's move on to the next part, and that is this right here. Okay, now this, don't let this scare you. This is where we want to get our equation to. Now this is what it's saying. We have a variable to a rational exponent is equal to a number. This is very much like x to the 1/2 is equal to 4. All right, so x to the 1/2 is equal to 4. Actually, let me write this 1/2 a little bit better, 1 over 2 this way. Okay, so this is saying you have some variable x to some rational exponent is equal to a number. So for example, x to the 1/2 is equal to 4. All right, where k is our 4 and 1/2 is our m over n. All right, now this is where we want to get, kind of any equation, we want to get it down to this form. Now to solve for this variable, or to solve for x, our m in this case is 1 in this little example, our n is our 2. It's the denominator, okay? So when we have an equation in this form right here to solve for x, what we're going to do is take both sides of the equation to the n over m power. So whatever that rational exponent is, so x over 1 over 2, or x to the 1/2 power is equal to 4, we're going to take both sides of the equation we're going to flip this fraction, this m over n, the reciprocal, so that's going to be 2 over 1 or 2, and we're going to raise both sides of the equation by the reciprocal of that power. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, why are we doing that? Well, because this fraction times the reciprocal is what? Well, the n's cross cancel, the m's cross cancel. That's just 1, so that's x to the first power, or x. Okay, in other words, we solve for the variable x. That's what we're doing it. But remember, if we're going to raise this side of the equation by n over m, well, we have to raise this side of the equation as well. All right, so this is how we are going to solve rational exponent equations. But there is another little twist here. Okay, now we have to pay attention to this. Okay, so let's take a look. X to the m over n, we have to pay attention to this value m, okay, which is the numerator. So what do we have to pay attention to? Well, let's go ahead and see that right now. So x to the m over n is equal to k. If m, okay, the numerator of our rational exponent, if it's even, our answer is going to be positive and negative. Okay, so just keep this in mind, and when you look at other examples, you'll see how this comes into play. But you can kind of think of that x squared and x to the third power, those examples that we looked at earlier. Again, you can have positive and negative number roots, or you can just have positive roots. If our answer, or if our m is an odd number, this numerator is odd number, you're only going to have a positive root. So x is equal to k to the n over m. Okay, so again, a lot of little things that I think students oftentimes forget because they go through these, they know the basic steps, but they forget these little details which have tremendous impact on your final answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this all together. And what do we have? All right, so here is the equation. So 3x to the 3/4 minus 6. So the first thing we want to do is move that 6 over to the other side. Again, we want to get x to the m over n is equal to k. We want to isolate the x to the rational exponent is equal to the number. So we're going to move that 6 over to the other side. We're just going to add 6 to both sides of the equation. And now we have 3, and let me kind of move down here. 3x to the 3/4 is equal to 6. Well, we want to isolate this part. So we have this 3 being multiplied by this power. So we want to divide both sides of the equation by 3, okay, because we want to get this all by itself. So this is going to be x to the 3/4 is equal to 6 divided by 3, which of course is 2. Okay, so here is our kind of setup, right? So this is what we kind of work towards. And now this is our x to the m over n is equal to k. All right, now let's just kind of notice right off the bat that we want to pay attention to that numerator, and it is odd, and you're going to see why that's important, right? Because if it's odd, we're only going to have a positive root. Now, what is the step that we need to take in order to find x by itself? Well, we're going to raise both sides of this equation by the reciprocal of this rational exponent. All right, so again, before we do that, though, we want to keep in mind that we are dealing with an odd situation. So we're not going to have a positive and negative as our answer. We're just going to have one value. All right, so let's go ahead and do this right now, which is, of course, raising both sides of the equation by 4/3. All right, so x to the 3/4 to the 4/3. Now, again, we're doing this. We're flipping this because when we multiply, just remember this other power about taking an exponent to an exponent. So if you have x squared to the third power, you're going to multiply the outside exponent to the inside exponent. So that's going to be x to the 6. So here, this is multiplication. So 3 times 4 is 12 over 4 times 3 is 12. 12 over 12 is 1. So that we're going to have x to the first, and that's going to be equal to 2 to the 4 over thirds power. Now, at this point, there's really nothing that we could do. We could express this as a radical, right? The cube root of 2 to the fourth, but that's not really going to serve us well. So we could just leave our answer just like this. And if we wanted a decimal value, we could plug this into our calculator to the caret or y to the x key, and then parentheses 4 divided by 3 and parentheses, and we get a decimal value. But for the purposes of this problem, because we are not using a calculator, this would be a good solution. But because we took a power to both sides of the equation, what we have, and matter of fact, I'm remiss because I said that this isn't the solution. Now it's the solution because I told you this was the answer. But at this point in the problem, we don't know if in fact this is the full solution, okay? Because we could have extraneous solutions. So if you're familiar with working with radical equations, things like this, you have to check your solutions because you could have extraneous solutions. And if you don't understand that concept, well, again, these are topics that you'll learn, in Algebra 1 and beyond, right? Again, a lot of details here. So we have to check this solution into our original equation to make sure it is correct. But let's go to take the next step, which of course is to take our solution and plug it into our problem and to check and see if it is good to go. But before we do that, why don't you just hit that subscribe button so I can quickly move on and check to see if in fact that is a good solution. Now, I definitely need your help, right? I'm not afraid to ask for you to say, hey, can you hit that subscribe button? And if you're going to do that, hit that notification bell as well, because my objective, my mission, my passion is to teach as many people as possible, to help them in mathematics. That's what I love to do, right? But I'm not afraid to ask for help. And if you're struggling in math, you're just like, you know what? I don't get what's going on. I'm having a tough time. Well, there comes a point in time where it's probably a good idea to ask for help. But who are you asking, all right? You've got to find someone that you can learn from that you like and understand. But I can tell you right now, whoever you learn from, should be teaching you in a very, very comprehensive manner. You basically could take a look at the material that we're looking at now. It's a lot going on, and if you try to learn this stuff fast, like, hey, I don't have the time, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I need to learn this in 5 minutes. Well, it doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, at this level of math, there's a lot of work. So get the right instruction, get the right support, but you can be successful, but you definitely, need the right instruction, the right teacher, the right encouragement, the right materials. And if you need help with any of this stuff, again, check out my Algebra 2 and or pre-calculus courses. You can find links to those in the description of this video. All right, so let's go and check this solution or possible solution at this stage. Although we know this is the right answer, we still have to show this step because this could potentially be an extraneous solution. All right, so x is equal to 2 to the 4th third. We hope this is the right answer. So we're going to replace this x with that value right there, right? 2 to the 4th third. So let's go and do that right now. All right, so this is going to be 3 times x to the 3/4, or x we're going to replace with 2 to the 4th third. We hope this is the correct solution. So what are we going to do here? Well, we're going to take this outside exponent and multiply it to the inside exponent. And when we do that, we're going to get what? Well, 4 times 3 is 12. Over 3 times 4 is 12. 12 over 12 is 1. So that's 2 to the first power, or 2. Okay, so now we have 3 times 2 minus 6. 3 times 2 is what? Well, that is 6. 6 minus 6 is, in fact, 0. And 0 is equal to 0. So this is a true statement. Okay, now again, if you had the right answer, but you didn't show this part, this check, your teacher would take off points. Okay, so for example, if this was, let's say, a question worth out of 10 points, you might get like 8 out of 10. And then a lot of you might be like, like really upset. Hey, what are you talking about? I had the right answer. Well, you don't know if this is in fact a good actual solution. It could be extraneous, and oftentimes these values are. So, as I kind of indicated in the very beginning of this video, even if you had the right answer, it's possible some of you didn't realize other aspects of this problem, or even it's necessary or required to do the check. So It's okay if you didn't, have this all figured out because learning is all about trying and, making mistakes and learning from your mistakes. But it's really about, when it comes to learning math, it's about practicing. Okay. You got to practice, practice, practice. And in terms of, solving these type of equations, this problem here, its level of difficulty is not that bad. There's much more complicated problems beyond this. And I know that excites you so much. But anyways, hopefully this little video helps you out. And if that's the case, don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.